Titanic, the ship of dreams and disaster. On the night of April 14, 1912, the largest and most luxurious passenger ship ever built sailed through the icy waters of the North Atlantic. Thousands of people aboard believed they were traveling on the safest ship in the world. Just a few hours later, that confidence would be shattered. More than 1,500 men, women and children would lose their lives in one of the deadliest maritime disasters in history. But the story of Titanic did not begin with an iceberg. It began years earlier in the shipyards of Belfast, where engineers, craftsmen and laborers set out to build what many considered the greatest achievement of the modern age. This is the story of Titanic. If you enjoy stories of history, tragedy, and real events that changed the world, welcome to Missing History. Let's uncover the past, one story at a time. The race to build the world's greatest ship. At the beginning of the 20th century, competition between transatlantic shipping companies was fierce. Millions of immigrants traveled from Europe to North America each year, while wealthy travelers demanded greater luxury and comfort. Two major companies dominated the Atlantic routes, Cunard Line and White Star Line. In 1907, White Star Line decided to respond to Cunard's success by building three enormous passenger liners, unlike anything the world had ever seen. These ships would be Olympic, Titanic, and Britannic. Rather than focusing on speed alone, White Star chose to emphasize size, luxury, and safety. The ships were designed by Thomas Andrews and built by the famous Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast, Ireland. Construction of Titanic began on March 31, 1909. More than 3,000 workers participated in the project. The vessel was colossal. She measured approximately 882 feet in length and weighed more than 46,000 tons. At the time, Titanic was the largest moving object ever created by human beings. Building the ship required millions of rivets, thousands of steel plates, and years of labor. Workers assembled the giant hull piece by piece. The work was dangerous. Several injuries occurred during construction, and a number of workers lost their lives. Yet the project continued, driven by national pride and commercial ambition. On May 31, 1911, Titanic was launched before a crowd of nearly 100,000 spectators. The massive hull slid into the water for the first time. The launch was considered a triumph of engineering. Over the following months, the ship's interior was completed. The accommodations were unlike anything seen before. First-class passengers enjoyed grand staircases, luxurious suites, restaurants, reading rooms, smoking lounges, and even a swimming pool. Titanic represented the confidence and optimism of the Edwardian era, a period when many believed technology could overcome any challenge. Few imagined that nature would soon prove otherwise. The maiden voyage. On April 10, 1912, Titanic departed Southampton, England, on her maiden voyage to New York City. The ship carried approximately 2,224 passengers and crew. Among them were some of the richest people in the world: industrialists, businessmen, aristocrats, and celebrities traveled in first class. Meanwhile, thousands of immigrants occupied second and third class accommodations, hoping to begin new lives in America. The atmosphere aboard Titanic was optimistic and festive. Passengers admired the ship's elegance. Many believed they were traveling aboard the safest vessel ever built. Although Titanic was never officially described as unsinkable by her builders, newspapers and public opinion often portrayed the ship as practically unsinkable due to her advanced watertight compartments. After departing Southampton, Titanic stopped briefly in Cherbourg, France, and Queenstown Island, before beginning her journey across the Atlantic. The voyage proceeded smoothly for several days. Passengers dined, socialized, attended concerts, and enjoyed the luxurious surroundings. No one knew disaster was approaching. Warnings in the North Atlantic. As Titanic traveled westward, other ships in the North Atlantic reported dangerous ice conditions. Wireless operators received multiple warnings about icebergs and large fields of sea ice. Several messages were delivered to the bridge. Others were delayed or not given high priority. At the time, iceberg warnings were common during certain seasons. The crew remained aware of the danger, but the ship continued at nearly full speed. Captain Edward Smith, one of the most experienced captains in the world, commanded Titanic. This voyage was expected to be his final journey before retirement. The weather on April 14th presented unusual challenges. The sea was remarkably calm. Normally, waves breaking against icebergs made them easier to spot. That night, however, the water was almost perfectly still. The moon was absent. Visibility was limited. Ahead lay one of the most famous icebergs in history. The collision. At 11:40 p.m. on April 14th, lookout Frederick Fleet spotted an iceberg directly ahead. He immediately rang the warning bell 3 times and telephoned the bridge. Iceberg right ahead. First Officer William Murdoch reacted instantly. He ordered the ship to turn and attempted to avoid the obstacle. But Titanic was simply too large and too close. Seconds later, the iceberg scraped along the starboard side of the ship. The collision seemed surprisingly minor. Many passengers barely noticed it. Some felt only a slight vibration. Yet below the waterline, the damage was catastrophic. The iceberg had opened several sections of the hull. Water rushed into multiple watertight compartments. Thomas Andrews quickly inspected the damage. His conclusion was devastating. Titanic could remain afloat with 4 flooded compartments, but 6 compartments were now taking on water. The ship was doomed. Within hours, Titanic would sink. The evacuation. Shortly after midnight, Captain Smith ordered preparations for evacuation. Lifeboats were uncovered, and passengers were instructed to move toward the boat deck. Unfortunately, Titanic carried only 20 lifeboats. Although this met legal requirements of the time, the lifeboats could accommodate only about half of those aboard. Many passengers initially refused to enter the boats. The ship appeared stable and brightly illuminated. Some believed the evacuation was unnecessary. Crew members struggled to convince people that the danger was real. The policy of women and children first was implemented. As a result, many men remained on board. Several lifeboats were launched only partially filled. This tragic decision would later become one of the most controversial aspects of the disaster. As the hours passed, the ship's bow sank deeper into the ocean. Passengers gradually realized the severity of the situation. Panic began to spread. The musicians famously continued playing music to calm those around them. Their courage became one of the enduring symbols of Titanic. Wireless operators Jack Phillips and Harold Bride desperately transmitted distress signals. Nearby ships received the messages, but help was still many miles away. Time was running out. The final moments. By approximately 2 a.m., most lifeboats had departed. Hundreds of passengers remained trapped aboard. The angle of the deck increased dramatically. Furniture slid across rooms. People struggled to maintain their footing. Water surged through the lower levels of the ship. At approximately 2:18 a.m., the immense stress caused Titanic to break apart. The bow section plunged beneath the surface. Moments later, the stern rose high into the air. Witnesses described terrifying sounds of metal tearing apart. Then the remaining section disappeared into the darkness. At approximately 2:20 a.m. on April 15, 1912, Titanic vanished beneath the North Atlantic. More than 1,500 people were left in the freezing water. Most would not survive longer than a few minutes. The temperature was near freezing. Hypothermia claimed lives rapidly. The screams of those in the water echoed through the night. For survivors in the lifeboats, it was a sound many never forgot. Rescue. Several hours later, the passenger ship Carpathia arrived at the disaster site. Its crew worked tirelessly to rescue survivors. One by one, lifeboats were brought aboard. The scene was heartbreaking. Families had been separated. Many survivors had lost loved ones. When the final count was completed, approximately 705 people had survived. More than 1,500 had perished. The tragedy shocked the world. Newspapers across Europe and North America published dramatic headlines. Public disbelief quickly turned to grief. The sinking of Titanic became an international tragedy. Why did Titanic sink? For decades, people debated the reasons behind the disaster. Modern investigations have identified several contributing factors. First, Titanic was traveling at a relatively high speed despite iceberg warnings. Second, visibility conditions made icebergs more difficult to detect. Third, the ship carried too few lifeboats for everyone aboard. Fourth, emergency procedures were insufficient. Many lifeboats departed without reaching full capacity. The design of the watertight compartments also played a role. Although innovative, the compartments did not extend high enough as water filled one compartment after another. It eventually spilled over the tops, like water flowing between sections of an ice cube tray. The ship's steel and rivets have also been studied extensively. While construction quality was generally high by the standards of the era, modern research suggests certain materials may have become more brittle in extremely cold temperatures. Ultimately, no single factor caused the disaster. It resulted from a combination of environmental conditions, design limitations, human decisions, and unfortunate timing. The aftermath. Investigations were launched in both the United States and Britain. Witnesses testified for weeks. The findings led to major changes in maritime safety. New regulations required ships to carry enough lifeboats for everyone on board. Continuous radio operation became mandatory. International ice patrols were established to monitor iceberg activity in the North Atlantic. These reforms transformed maritime safety and continue to influence shipping regulations today. For the families of the victims, however, no investigation could erase the pain. The loss remained deeply personal. Entire families disappeared. Dreams ended in a single night. The disaster left emotional scars that lasted for generations. Discovery of the wreck. For more than 70 years, Titanic rested undiscovered, nearly 2.5 miles beneath the ocean's surface. Many believed the wreck might never be found. Then, in 1985, an expedition led by oceanographer Robert Ballard located the remains of the ship. The discovery captured worldwide attention. Images revealed the bow resting on the seabed. Artifacts remained scattered across the ocean floor. The sight was haunting. The grand vessel that once symbolized human achievement now lay silent in darkness. Subsequent expeditions provided valuable information about the ship's final moments and helped confirm many details of survivor testimony. More than a century has passed since Titanic sank beneath the icy waters of the North Atlantic. Yet the story continues to fascinate people around the world. Perhaps it endures because Titanic represents more than a ship. It symbolizes ambition, innovation, confidence, tragedy, and the fragile nature of human life. The vessel was built to showcase the very best of human engineering. Instead, it became a reminder that no technology is invincible. The lessons learned from Titanic saved countless lives in the years that followed. And while the ship itself now rests in darkness beneath the sea, its story remains very much alive. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. If you enjoyed this documentary and would like to explore more remarkable stories from the past, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and joining us again for another journey into history. Until next time, this is Missing History. Thank you for watching.